Jolly good. Yep. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Let's make a start on this cabinet meeting. This is if you like, an extraordinary cabinet meeting, an extra cabinet meeting. It follows an extra council meeting. Decisions on the item that are in front of us are cabinet decisions, but for important reasons, we've had the full council look at things. We've done council briefings and all sorts. We'll come to that shortly. Can I just start by checking? Do we have any? We don't have any apologies for absence, I don't think. I think we've got a full team. Okay, thank you. Can I ask if any cabinet member wants to make any declaration of interest on this evening's agenda? No? Okay. Thank you. Chair's announcements. We don't normally have anything under here other than I'd just like to reference again, as we did at our full council meeting the other day, the situation in Ukraine, and to point out to you that we are today flying the flag of Ukraine outside the Guildhall, and tomorrow we will be out of our outside our two other council meetings, council offices in Daventry and Toaster. Forgive me for the microphone volume going up and down there. This situation continues to be a terrible one, and we send to the people of Ukraine our sympathies, our support, and most particularly to those in the Northampton and West Northants area. There is a vigil on the Market Square. I think many of us would intend to attend there. We watch the situation with horror, seeing what we see on the TV screens, and I wanted to mention that. Let's move on to our agenda item, which is the disposal of land at Sixfields, which has been an item of some very significant discussion. We picked up some points from the full council on Monday. We had a jolly good airing of views, and we're working through those points. I'm going to hand over shortly to Malcolm to make a few comments. We then have speakers registered who may choose to speak or may feel they don't need to, but they are registered in this order. We have Councillor Sally Beardsworth, Councillor Jonathan Harris, then Councillor Dennis Meredith, Councillor John Shepherd, Councillor James Hill, and then Councillor Danielle Stone. But first of all, Malcolm, hand over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I just say that?
Oh, sorry.
Councillor James Hill will not be attending this evening.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Malcolm, over to you.
Fine. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm not going to say too much at the start of the proceedings tonight, because we have 6 speakers, as I understand it. And you may well recall that, well, I'm sure you will recall at the full council meeting, the objective there was not to spout on about what's required and what we're going to do, but to listen and see what the various views of all the people were at the time. And this process has been bedeviled by twists and turns and things, and it's been quite difficult to sort the wheat from the chaff. So, but I think we're getting there on that, and I'll come to that in a moment when we wrap up. What I'm doing is tonight, to start with, is to listen to the 6 speakers. Let's see if there's anything new, which is what I'm really looking for. If it's saying the same thing as we heard on the full council, well, we've taken all that on board, and I think we're making. We've got some progress on there. So without further ado, Chair, I'll talk about our proposed actions when I get to the summing up period, subject to anything I hear tonight.
Yeah, fair enough, Malcolm. Very, very happy to. Perhaps I just reiterate that again. We had a really full discussion. There are a number of issues that had an excellent airing, so I'd ask speakers please to contribute something new if they feel they have something. Let's move to speakers. First, we welcome. Okay, thank you, Dennis. Take you off the list. First speaker, therefore, is Councillor Beardsworth. Sally, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I feel as though the ground is moving beneath my feet even as we speak, because I think something's happened that we don't know about, but maybe we'll get enlightened as the evening goes on. All I'm going to refer to is the Kpmg report. If you look at, I've got it here, if you look at items recommendation 8, pressures with sign-off process, the council should ensure that officers are aware that if a new information comes to light before or after a member's decision, that it could be appropriate to pause the process in order to seek further guidance. There's one point, and then the other one is recommendation for the sale of the land for development it should be taken under a competitive process. when considering the value of the land, the council may, in limited circumstances and subject to particular facts, be able to take account of ethical considerations. Those are the points I haven't raised before. As I say, I still have reservations and worries about, one, what's going to happen to the land, two, what's going to happen to the club as regards if they have to pay for the stand. And I don't want to elaborate more because I really feel there is a definite change of feeling to the room tonight than there was last week. So I'm hoping that you are about to reconsider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sally, very much indeed. Do anyone want to clarify anything with Sally? It's probably fairly straightforward, isn't it? Malcolm, did you want to ask anything, Sally?
I'll deal with the 3 points that Sally's made at the summing up. I think that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. In which case, then our next speaker is Councillor Jonathan Harris. Jonathan, did you want to add? Okay. All right, thank you very much indeed. Takes us on to Councillor John Shepherd. John, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Jonathan. I thought, as I made a modest contribution at council, which has received some support, I thought I ought to say something today on updating since then. I was asked by Malcolm to go into the legals a bit more. I did spend a few decades doing this sort of work for Hewitsons in Northampton, and that's just by the by. But I did spend some time with Kath and looking with her at the legals. And two things that strike me very much from that. Firstly, the underlining the advice that when one is selling something like this, one is looking for best consideration, and that when one is identifying how to get best consideration, conventionally, that can quite easily be either red book or open market value. And it's perfectly probable, perfectly possible, and perfectly acceptable to use a red book approach. And that, of course, is what was done some months ago. And indeed, I think it's fair to say that it's almost inconceivable that a landowner, in the circumstances that we have ourselves, with the multitude of leases of fair degree of complexity, would go to the open market to dispose of this site encumbered as it is by these complex leases. It would be very unusual, and I think quite a proper decision that was taken, sort of not to go to the market. And I think it follows from that that also it seemed to me very logical that the complexities in dealing with Sildara, if one did, were such that is one of the reasons why it didn't appear as a significant feature in the officer's report. So at the council meeting, I was basically saying that I was looking at do nothing as a reasonable approach. As to the actual approach, I look forward to hearing from the portfolio holder. And I'm bound to say that it is a highly unusual situation where we're having now a council meeting and a cabinet meeting discussing a proposition under the, if not direct authorship, at least the broad ownership of the portfolio holder, and we still have yet to know his leadership on this particular point. There's a small dig at Malcolm, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me digging because I've said that to him to his face before now. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I think the decision on do nothing or go for the cobbler's offer is entirely one to be led by the portfolio holder, and I'm sure that in due course one of those decisions will be quite properly made. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. That's very helpful. helpful to have you to kindly agree with your expertise to give us sort of a member view over the advice that had been received. We presume that similarly, Malcolm, if you want to make any comment, you'll sum up at the end.
The only thing I would comment on is small dig. Well, I named the game. Where are you, John? I would expect no less. Thank you.
Right, so in the absence of Councillor James Hill, we've just one speaker left, and that's Councillor Danielle Stone. Danielle, welcome.
Thank you very much. I feel as if I'm caught in an epic tale, really. I really appreciate the time, trouble and effort the Cabinet has made to really get people to understand the complexity of issues in front of us. I really appreciate all of that effort. And I appreciate the effort of all the officers as well. I might repeat something that I said at full council. I do think this is a really good example of something that should have gone to scrutiny. I think it would have been extremely helpful for us to have been able to call the club, the supporters, the Cabinet, different people to come and talk to us so that we get a fully rounded perspective of all the issues. I do have an understanding of the complexity of the leases, and when I first saw the proposal, I was delighted because I thought, oh, thank goodness, you know, somebody's realised there is a way out of this morass. But of course, nothing is ever as simple as that. So I still do have some concerns. And actually, one of them was thrown up by the report we were given at full council when it told us there were 4 things that had been considered, and one of them was housing. Now, I thought we'd dismissed the option for housing because of the toxicity of the land. Of course, I am really, you know, I'm in a ward with high deprivation, high levels of homelessness, high level of temporary accommodation, high level of HIMOs. I'm very interested in any options there might be looking at land, which then made me think a little bit harder about what are the questions I need answers to. And of course, you know, I will champion the football club because I can see it's got one of my other hobby horses, isn't it, Leader, is social value. It's got the most enormous social value, not just for footballers, but for the town. So, of course, I will champion that. But I really want to know answers to some questions, and 2 of them. Why didn't we consider developing that land ourselves? I really want the answer to that. If there is an option for housing, why hasn't that been considered? And the 3rd question is, this is our land, this is our town, these are our people. Why haven't we produced a master plan for that land to offer developers? And why are we putting ourselves in a position where we're going to receive what is given instead of being able to shape it? Those are my questions.
Thank you, Danielle. I'll hand over to Malcolm on those couple of things. I think, you know, housing remains an option available to any developer who might develop it. But I think the viability, the level of remediation for housing is extreme. And even our own housing department, MPHU, who have just been asked for an opinion, said that they think it would be pretty hard to imagine developing housing there. I think with regards to our own development, this is not land that's in our own, we have the freehold, but it's occupied by a leaseholder with 150-year, I think it is, lease. So it's not in our gift to do that. It would be, we would require permission to enter on the land to even do anything we wanted to inspect it or whatever. So it's not vacant possession piece of land that we may have the amount of choices around that we might do on a normal council owned piece of land. There were a couple of points I picked up. Malcolm may want to address other points, and indeed some from previous speakers. Malcolm? Oh, sorry, did you want to come in briefly then?
Just on the subject of pre-scrutiny, I think it's, you know, as a scrutiny chair yourself, Danielle, I think you've every right to request pre-scrutiny on certain issues. This would be one of them. I think it's 4 months now since we had an all-member briefing on this very issue. Personally, I would expect you as a scrutiny chair to make that request for pre-scrutiny rather than waiting for us to make the offer of you. Of course, it can work both ways, but you are in a position to request pre-scrutiny of high-profile issues such as this.
I'm glad you raised that. Thank you. I think Cabinet, the relationship between Cabinet and scrutiny is a 2-way street. So I think it can go either way. And I think so if we hadn't been bogged down in budget considerations, I think actually we would have asked for scrutiny on this. But it has also made me reflect on what the relationship between scrutiny and cabinet is and what it should be. And I think there's a bit of a discussion to be had there.
I mean, separately, now that we're a bit bedded in as a council, it might be worth us, perhaps myself and Adam, or cabinet and chairs of scrutiny, getting together for a bit of a chat, really. It might be time to review how all that's working. The offers there, I'm going to see it is from cabinet colleagues too, from all of us, or just myself and Adam to have a chat with the three chairs, and we'll work that out. Happy to. Thank you. Malcolm, over to you.
Let Danielle sit down. All right, sticking to the matter in hand. Right. Well, thank you for that. That's very good. I think I'll deal with, first of all, thank you for Jonathan and Dennis for letting us get away a little earlier than we might otherwise do. Sally, there were some interesting comments I thought you had there. Using the competitive process, well, we will have to, it is necessary we demonstrate we've done that, and we've, I think, been very careful ethical considerations, yes. John spoke about the best consideration, red book value, open market versus open market. Do nothing or go to the cobblers. I think John's conclusion there. Danielle was very kind about appreciating the effort, and that's really important here. That we don't have to jump quickly. We don't get pressurized into doing something just because we get it right as best we can, and that's what I hope we've been doing. Scrutiny. Well, I hope they have a good look at the the issue, because that's good. See if we got it right, or could have done something better, or perhaps. Shaping the development. I think Jonathan answered that rather well. So I come back to the first point that was made, and that was the pause, you may recall. And as I said earlier, this process, it's been coming and going, lots of items going on all the time, changing every time you seem to open to turn a page. So we're looking to complete this as quickly as we can, without any further delay, but we will not be making a decision tonight. We'll be deferring it. There's one small item yet to be covered, which we hope will be covered, and Stuart's got that in hand. We'll be coming to a final decision as rapidly as possible, and hopefully in the month of March. And that, Chair, is where we stand as far as I would go on to say, sorry, I should have said that we at the full council time scale was considered, so we're resetting a new time scale. Quite right, it was pointed out there that we reset the time scale so we can change the time scale, so we've done that. There were talk about the ACV. I think that's an important issue that came up, and we need to deal with that. But of course, we do also need to get the capital receipts in if we can, and maximise the benefits from those. And we believe that we're well on the way to doing just that. So, Chair, that's my summary. Thank you.
Yep, we'll pop back to Malcolm in a second and to move a recommendation. Yeah, thank you. That's a good point, Catherine. Just to add a couple of comments to that, I think Sally mentioned the Kpmg report. I'm very familiar with it. Read it a lot of times. Soon after we went live with West, and I found myself in this job, I honked it out and circulated it to the officers in case they weren't previously aware of it. It makes some really important points, but I'm satisfied that we've complied with that Kpmg report. We're only here because of huge mistakes made here at the borough in the past, as we all know. Decisions of 2013, 2016, when I became the leader here, it became evident from the PwC report what rotten mistakes had made. And the big criticisms there were about openness of decision making and good governance, and they were about due diligence, weren't they? So we've due diligence the heck out of this, and we've open governance the heck out of it too, really. And the extra council meeting that was of no other purpose than openness took place and did that. This cabinet meeting, holding a separate one rather than just making an agenda item on another one, where we've got other issues to discuss, was all about making that as open as possible. And I'm extremely grateful to the full council who came up with some really thought out comments. I thought they were really helpful a lot of which had been considered, and it involved drawing people's attention to things that were already contained in existing papers for the council meeting, or indeed for this evening's meeting, and many of those things have been answered. There are other issues. There was still some stuff around the overall value, talk of athletics tracks. We heard from speakers from the trust, speakers from the club, and others, didn't we? Generally, others coming along, fans saying, you know, get on and do the stands and so on. So I think we heard all those comments, and many of those things, talk about the athletics track and various other things, have been knocked down during the course of the last week. We are not quite there, but I don't think we're that far off. We'd love to get this concluded. We will only do it when it's absolutely right. We think it just about is. Is that fair to say, Malcolm?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
I've seen nods from Cabinet as well, who I have to tell you are tremendously well briefed. We've had discussions have continued across the weekend on this issue. Again today, it's a continual dialogue to make sure we get it right. Malcolm, apologies.
Yeah, no, so the recommendation is that a new decision-making timetable is set to consider the disposal of the land at 6 by the leader in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance, with a view to achieving a capital receipt before the end of 2022. Second, the council should trigger the process under Chapter 3, Part 5, Localism Act 2011, relating to a disposal of an asset of community value, brackets, the running track site. C, the Assistant Director, Assets and Environment, conduct a best consideration assessment, the latest offer from Sildara and CDNL, and report to a future meeting of Cabinet. Reasons for that are: number one, to ensure that the council complies with its legal obligations under the Localism Act 2011, and two, to meet the council's obligations to seek the best consideration in relation to land disposals as set out in the report. That's me done, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments at all from Cabinet colleagues, or indeed officer colleagues, if relevant? No? Okay, Malcolm's made some recommendations. This is not kicking the can down the road. We have important points raised by the council. We only went to the council because we were going to listen to what they said. As Malcolm says, we'd like to conclude this. We'd like to bring this to that March meeting, which is a little over a week away. We can do that. That gives us the added benefit that we can publish papers, albeit the main papers are published. We can publish papers that will be out there for just shy of a week. And that's good governance too. You've heard Malcolm's recommendations. Can I just ask the Cabinet to confirm if those recommendations are agreed? Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you very much indeed. No, at this point, no. I had some emails today on various different proposals for collecting money. We're not quite sure if it's money that is being sought, really, but we will look at that, and we'll advise all councillors. We know that within the council, through members across party, and indeed people of Northampton and West Northants, we've got a lot of generosity and compassion. So if we can tap into that, we'll get back to you very, very quickly. Sally. Thank you very much. I think other than that, that was our last item. There's no urgent business. So if we may, we'll draw the meeting to a close.